Good morning. Week 17 NFL DFS. It is Fantasy Football Championship week. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Packers lost last night, knocked Joel out, so he will be missing today. So we're obviously praying for him and all the beatdowns he's taken because of the Packers the last couple weeks. So hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. We got DFS, we have your championships. If you have any questions for your DFS lineups, any questions for your start sits, I'd be happy to take those in. So make sure to drop those comments and then make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We have 7 games in the early window. We've got 2 in the late window. This is a pretty goofy slate where a lot of it is very straightforward, but at the same time, it's not just you. It's going to be a lot of people playing the same stuff. So trying to work around some of those things. So I'm going to kick this off here, and then it's just me today. So if I'm screwing up, somebody's going to have to let me know on the banners or if my mic's not working or any of that good stuff. So I'm going to pull this up, and we're going to kick things off with the Arizona Cardinals going on the road to play the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are a slight home favorite, 7-point favorites at home. This game, when we were drafting best ball teams in July and August, this one stuck out like a sore thumb. Obviously, the difference would be Jacoby Brissett being a lot better than Kyler Murray, but Trey McBride going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who we always projected to be probably the best offense in the league, and that's what we're going to get in championship weekend. So last time Jamar Chase played Arizona, he had 15 receptions for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not going to say he's going to totally replicate that, but he's going to come pretty damn close. But the problem with this, as far as DFS goes, is everybody's going to know that. So Jamar Chase ends up being the second highest wide receiver on the slate. He is 9,400. And then Trey McBride on the other side is 8K. So the first question obviously would be if you're going to play Joe Burrow, are you going to go a little cheaper with Jacoby Brissett, lean into, the comeback narrative? I know it didn't hit totally last week against the Falcons, but every other week it has hit for them. So, Joe Burrow ends up in a nice spot. It is a quarterback. It's a DFS slate where quarterback is pretty thin. Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts seems like they're going to be playing in a lot of weather. So that's kind of out of the question there. Drake May, a bunch of wide receivers are hurt. It's going up against the Jets. Are the Jets really going to fight back? You have Trevor Lawrence, who's been red hot. Baker, who seems like he's battling through injury. And then it's like a couple of the rest of these cheap guys. But do you think that they can match up against like Burrow and Lawrence? So Burrow is going to, this game is probably going to be the most played on the entire slate. So you're just going to have to play it through. And T. Higgins might be the one guy that goes a little under the radar. I think a lot of people are going to click on Chase. The Speak this past week talked about, Jamar Chase not having a touchdown since, for over the last month. So T. Higgins ends up being 7,500. I do want to bring up Mike Gesicki because he will be a cheaper bring back option. I'd love to play just through Higgins and Chase, but it does get really expensive. T. Higgins, 5,100 on FanDuel, DraftKings, he ends up being 3,500. As far as Jamar Chase on DraftKings go, it's going to be the same thing as him and JSN, who's probably going to be overlooked a little bit on this slate. As far as the Cardinals stuff goes, Marvin Harrison Jr. is back. He still can't catch a football to save his life, but he will be in the lineups. He is 5,400 on DraftKings and then 6,400 on FanDuel. I'd rather play it through Michael Wilson, who's just clearly been better, but I do think that Marvin Harrison Jr. will be a little under the radar as far as being clicked on. He is 6,900 on FanDuel, and then DraftKings, he is 6,400. It is not cheap to stack this game, obviously, and there's not really a way to get different unless you just want to get different by the running backs. Chase Brown had the monster game last week. He's 7,400 on DraftKings. And then on FanDuel, he is 8K. So it's really expensive to play these guys. There is some punt options, but if everybody's going to play the same stuff, they're probably going to lean into the same punt options as well. It's just a really thin slate. There's only 9 games. A lot of them have nothing to play for, so it gets pretty complicated pretty quick. So I'm not interested in the Arizona running backs, but if that's probably a large field play if you really want to get different. Not Chandler, Michael Carter. That would be the guy that I would go to. 6,500. He's not even cheap, though. So 5,200 there. As far as defense goes, I don't want to play any of them. Both of them been pretty brutal. The one thing is, we've talked about it all year. The Bengals are the worst team of all time against tight ends. And that's, you've waited all year for this Trey McBride explosion spot. He did not get there last week. There was a lot of Elijah Higgins. It seemed like the Falcons played Trey McBride pretty well. I'm not necessarily nervous about the spot. I worry about him failing, and then you're paying so much salary for him. But I mean, I expect this game. It's got a really high team total, and I mean, I expect it to. It's 53 points as far as the team total goes. So I expect both of these teams to come out firing, and that's the game I'm going to lean into. I know that a lot of other people are going to lean into the same stuff, and we'll find some different ways to get different. But that's the best game on the slate outside of probably Jaguars Colts. I mean, that's really saying something. That's a pretty big drop off. So that's it for that game there. Next game, this game's going to fly under the radar, and it's a little goofy. The Seattle Seahawks 7-point road favorites against Carolina Panthers. Every year or every game this year that the Panthers have been underdogs, Tedero McMillan has gone off. So McMillan is 5,900 on DraftKings. FanDuel, he ends up being 7,300. He's got some really nice, I mean, he ends up getting a bunch of targets each game 16, 10, 10. He's probably better on a DraftKings play when you get receptions. But if you think that Seattle kind of goes off, but the problem is Seattle's defense has been really good. So Bryce Young, I think he's a little too thin on a slate like this, going up against Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, even Drake May. I don't love him there. I do like Darnold a lot. I think Darnold is probably one of these guys who's going to go completely under the radar. Nobody's going to play him. I'd be really interested in him this week because we saw the ceiling just like last week. He played the Rams, come from behind, ends up getting 20 points. He's a lot cheaper, and you can kind of spend elsewhere. I mean, he is 2K cheaper than Joe Burrow on this slate, and he's got a little less of a ceiling, but you obviously know where that target competition is going to, and that's JSN. JSN against Carolina, he's going to be the most expensive wide receiver on the slate. A lot of people would rather click Jamar Chase, so it leaves JSN in this nice spot here where he's not going to get clicked. He's got the same ceiling. He's been arguably the best wide receiver in football this year, so he ends up being 8,600. I think he's a very fun tournament play. I'd rather just lean into the Bengals stuff in cash, but as far as tournaments go, I think he ends up setting up really nice. And as far as the running backs go, we finally saw the life of Kenneth Walker kind of finally kick off. He is 5,800 on DraftKings, FanDuel. He is 6,700. He finally had the ceiling game that we've been waiting for all year. Can he do it twice? I I think so. I think so. Getting closer to the playoffs, Seattle's going to be a playoff team. They obviously know that Kenneth Walker's a much better click than Zach Charbonnet. So Charbonnet, he's been okay. I mean, he's been fair. I don't think he's got much of a ceiling. He's 5,900. I mean, he's not the cheapest guy in the world. So you're hoping for a touchdown there. He's 5,300 on DraftKings. Rashid Shaheed ended up finally having some work on the field. Had the punt return. He's 4,300. He's probably a stacking partner with Sam Darnold here. He is 5,500 on DraftKings. It's been pretty thin outside of this JSN stuff as far as these wide receivers go. But the one other guy I do want to bring up, Cooper Kupp give me just a second here. Cooper Kupp, he's been okay. I'd rather lean into AJ Barner if you're going to double stack Sam Darnold today. So 5,500 for Kupp on FanDuel. DraftKings, he's 3,800. And then AJ Barner will be in my tight end pool today. Tight end's pretty thin. We'll get into some of these other guys, but like I said, this is a pretty thin slate overall. So 3,600 on DraftKings. He's pretty cheap over on FanDuel as well as 5,200. And then as far as defense goes, Seattle's going to be third highest on FanDuel, and then they are going to be the second highest on DraftKings. So it's kind of a tough click to get there with the Seattle Seahawks defense because there's a lot of cheap options. The Giants, we'll get into a little bit. They're going to get played a lot. The Raiders on the other side. The Browns going up against Pittsburgh. Myles Garrett going up for the sack record. And just there's some other spots here that I think I'd rather. If you're playing like Jamar Chase or Trey McBride, you can't really pay up for defense too. So that's the only goofy part that it gets there. On the Panther side, outside of Tedero McMillan, Rico Dowdle, he's been okay. All the cokeheads out there, Jalen Coker has quietly been really good as well. So 6K for Rico Dowdle on DraftKings, FanDuel, he is 7,300. Coker, his price has gone up a little bit. He's 5,600 on FanDuel, DraftKings, 4,400. He is in the thought process of the Bryce Young and them have to play from behind. He can kind of quietly get there as a cheap play. You hope he gets a touchdown. He's gotten a good amount of work for, the Panthers who don't throw a whole lot. When they do get these come from behind, scenarios, Jalen Coker has quietly gotten there. So outside that, I'm not really interested in any of the Carolina tight ends. Not interested in Carolina defense, and I believe that is it for this game. I do like Sam Darnold on a slate like this. Just ends up being a little quiet when everything is leaned into some of the other more important games. So, next game here, the New Orleans Saints coming off a big game. Tyler Shuck and Chris Olave last week going up against the Tennessee Titans, who beat the Kansas City Chiefs, or the skeleton of them, since they've just completely fallen off the radar. So I'm just going to kick it off with the Saints defense. Saints defense has been top 10 second half this year, and they've quietly been very good. They get Cam Ward, who none of his wide receivers can catch. I know Cam Ward has looked a lot better. 3,500 on DraftKings, FanDuel. They end up being going to be up there as well. So 4,200, probably a better play on FanDuel, a little cheaper there. But on a slate like this, we saw Tyler Shuck last week have a little bit of a ceiling. He's going to be a punt quarterback, 7,300 on FanDuel. DraftKings, he ends up being 5,200. They're in a good spot again. Titans are more of a pass funnel than a run funnel. Audric Estime got kind of scooted off for Taysom Hill. We'll get into him in a minute. But, I mean, ends up setting up pretty nice for the Saints, and just another team that people are just going to see this game. It's pretty ugly on paper, and they're just going to kind of ignore it and go from there. But Chris Olave, rightfully so, he's 7,200, right behind Jamar Chase on DraftKings. FanDuel, he's going to be up in that 8,100. I mean, it's pretty expensive to play him. I don't think anybody's going to play him for that price. Everybody's played Chris Olave this year to be very cheap. So that I'm not really interested in Audric Estime. I am interested in both tight ends. The problem is Taysom Hill has one good game, and he goes right behind Trey McBride. I mean, this 13 points last week, and he ends up being the second highest tight end over on FanDuel. That's a little ridiculous there. A lot cheaper over on DraftKings, where he's 2,700. He'd obviously be better play over on DraftKings than FanDuel this week. I do like Juwan Johnson, who's quietly been good this entire year, 7,200 on DraftKings. Big game last week. He's not going to compete with Trey McBride if he goes off, but he's cheap enough to where you could pay up elsewhere. So Juwan Johnson would be the click for me. I'm not really too worried about Taysom Hill stuff. The last game in the Superdome, probably for him last week, and they just kind of showed him off there. So Juwan Johnson, if I can find him real quick, it's completely flip-flopped on FanDuel and DraftKings. He's 5,200 on FanDuel. I think it's a fine click there. I'd rather play him over guys like A.J. Barner, Gesicki, and probably priced perfectly because I like a lot of these tight ends in this range here. So talk about Saints defense. On the Titan side, I cannot play any tight ends or wide receivers. Tony Pollard has quietly been really good the last couple of weeks. He's 6,100 on FanDuel. DraftKings, he is 5,500 here. 13, 21, 31. Like I said, Saints defense has been pretty good, but Tony Pollard has gotten the workload the entire year. It's just been, the problem is the rest of the team kind of sucks and kind of handicaps them. So I think that is it for this game here. I'm not playing Tajay Spears. Like I said, I'm not playing DK, not playing Imanor or Gunnar Helm or Chigakonkwo. That'd be like really large field stuff, but I don't see this game going off on both sides. If anything, it'd be just going off the one. So that should do it for Saints and Titans. Next game here, we have the Steelers and the Browns. Believe that Harold Fannin will play today. Quinshon Judkins last week ends up breaking his ankle, and he will be out for the season. If Dylan Sampson is playing, I think he is pretty interesting. He ended up getting most of the work with Judkins out last week, and Shador Sanders has been a guy who dumps it off a lot. We saw Baltimore win last night, so it keeps him in. Hard to love Aaron Rodgers going up against Myles Garrett. The one fun fact here, Myles Garrett going up against for the sack record. When Michael Strahan broke the sack record, he was going up against Brett Favre. So, Myles Garrett going up against Aaron Rodgers, kind of weird how time works there. But this game in a nutshell seems like a slog. Last week I talked about Kenneth Gainwell. He was a really good click. And if going up against Myles Garrett, I do expect Aaron Rodgers to kind of, dump it off a lot. So Kenneth Gainwell, 5,600. He's still not priced appropriately for what he's done over the last month. 6,300. Jalen Warren obviously broke the slate last week, and he's still in a really good spot here at 7,400, 66 over on DraftKings. I'd rather play through those guys. Obviously, DK Metcalf sitting there beating the hell out of a fan. He gets removed from the game. If you're going to play wide receivers for the Pittsburgh side, I cannot believe I'm going to type this name in 2025, but I think it would be Adam Thielen would be the guy that I would go to outside of the Pat Fryermuth or Jonnu Smith. I'd rather just play none of these wide receivers at all. But if you really want to get goofy about it, I don't know why you would, but I mean, he's quietly got there 4 receptions for 49 yards. And when I mean quietly got there, it's for the Pittsburgh Steelers who've been just kind of a joke. So Aaron Rodgers has looked really good. I'm not sure if they're going to need him a whole lot. I think they're just going to ground and pound. I think both running backs for the Steelers are viable. I like Dylan Sampson on the other side. I do want to bring him up because it's a lot of running backs really thin this week. 5,100 on DraftKings for Dylan Sampson. FanDuel, he ends up being 5,800. So I don't want to play Jerry Jeudy. Fannin, he seems like he's going to play. He's a top 10 tight end this year, but he's going to be priced appropriately. I think people will be scared to play him. I'm not. I'm very interested in Harold Fannin today, 6,500 over on FanDuel. DraftKings, he's 5K. Want to see his, I mean, he's going to be second or third on both sides. So it just kind of ends up being pretty goofy there. Sean, appreciate you tuning in. Is Gainwell the way to get through the Pittsburgh running and passing game this week? I think both guys are. I like Gainwell over Warren. I liked him. He's done better outside of last week for the last month compared to Jalen Warren, but I think both guys are viable. I'm not saying Gainwell and you can't play Jalen Warren. I prefer Gainwell. He's the guy who's going to get more of the passing down role. Aaron Rodgers has really seemed keen on him. He had the big play last week against Detroit, big touchdown catch. It seems like he relies on him. He ends up being more in passing down work, and he gets the dump offs, and you're going up against Myles Garrett. I prefer Gainwell over Warren, but I like both guys. I think both are fine plays. So that's where I'd go to there. And like I said, if anybody else has any questions, any start sits, DFS stuff, make sure to drop them in. I'd be happy to take care of those for you as well. Both defenses, I think, are okay. 3,300 for the Steelers, the Browns defense is 2,500. Steelers defense is going to be played a decent amount over on FanDuel. I'll pull these up real quick. 4,400. They're a little over mid-tier, but I think Steelers defense is viable going up against Shador, who offensive line's really bad. It just seems to be kind of falling apart for him. Steelers have been really up and down as far as defense goes. Sometimes they look, like the steel curtain, and sometimes they've given it up. I don't expect them to give a big game up to Shador Sanders and, the clock and the celebration and all that stuff. So tight ends for Pittsburgh, I would not play any of these guys unless you're playing large field stuff. Darnell Washington, I mean, he's good for one big run where he'll truck somebody over. Pat Fryermuth, he's been nothing. I know Jonnu Smith got a touchdown, kind of got worked in, but like I said, Harold Fannin's got a better ceiling than all these guys. You're going up against Trey McBride and some of these other mid-range tight ends that we're going to get to in a minute. I just don't want to get here unless you're playing like really large field stuff this week. So just something I can't possibly get to. I think that is it for this game. Like I said, I like both running backs a lot for Pittsburgh in this matchup. I like Gainwell over Warren. I've kind of preferred it that way. I do want to pull up both of their stats just because I think they go under the radar as far as how much production you're getting out of these guys, because you think about the Steelers offense and how goofy it is. But I mean, 21, 16, 13, 15 from Gainwell. He's been more than serviceable, especially for his price. Warren ends up being a little more expensive. He has a big game last week, but it's right in the same realm, 13, 11, 12. So, like I said, I prefer Gainwell, especially over on DraftKings where it's full PPR. But both guys are viable in this matchup this week. So, next game, this is a pretty goofy one. New England Patriots, almost 2 touchdown favorites going up against the Jets. I like this game a lot better before the injuries for the Patriots. They're down 2 wide receivers. They might be possibly down 3. Mac Hollins and Kayshon Boutte are both out, and possibly Pop Douglas coming out of the slot. He will be a game time decision. It sets up to be pretty straightforward with Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, and possibly Kyle Williams for Drake May stacks. Drake May is probably in the best spot. The Jets don't get any interceptions. They don't get any turnovers. I don't know if they've had an interception all year. That's how bad it's been. I'll be very blunt about this. I'm not playing anything on the Jets side. I'm not even going to entertain A.D. Mitchell. Breece Hall. I've got to be really deep in the weeds, and that's more of a large field tournament play. But I do want to bring up Drake May. He's a little cheaper. He's been really good, but he does not have the ceiling as like Joe Burrow. The reason why he's been a top 5 quarterback in fantasy, because he's been getting 20, 25 points almost every single week. And like 27 is his, kind of a ceiling compared to Joe Burrow, who we know will have these absolute bomb games, 31, 39, close to 30. And he sets up in a much better matchup. Just as far as game environment goes, I shouldn't say matchup, more of game environment where you know that the Jets aren't going to punch back. Running back's pretty hard to figure out this week. It seems like Travion Henderson will play. Coming off a concussion, do they really need him? He's 77K on FanDuel. And then on DraftKings, he ends up being 6,400. I think Ramondre is like the ex-girlfriend who's peeping through the window. The family still really loves the ex-girlfriend, but, the boyfriend's kind of moved on to Travion to better things. But I do think that Ramondre will get a lot of run, especially if the Patriots come out and beat the hell out of the Jets to start off. I don't expect to see a lot of Travion. The way that he obviously gets there is the home run ball, and he can hit that, especially on a slate like this. We talk about running backs pretty thin. But, I think Ramondre is a good click. He's 5,900 on DraftKings. FanDuel, he is 6,400. And I'll go through the wide receivers for the Patriots because Stephon Diggs, he's had a couple of spike weeks, but at the same time, he's still not a full-time player, and I don't know if that changes this week with all the injuries, but I think people will get to him immediately and think, oh, it's Stephon Diggs time. I don't know if they're going to need him. I'm a little worried about the Patriots where they can get up early and then the production's just not there for the rest of the time. So Stephon Diggs, he's 6,500 on FanDuel. DraftKings, he's 5,800. I do like Hunter Henry a lot. I think this sets up really nice for him. 4,500 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel. He's had these spots here, 24, 12. When things get pretty thin, he ends up being one of those guys that Drake May can obviously rely on. Hooper, the other tight end, Austin Hooper, 4,500. I do have to bring him up. DraftKings, he ends up being 2,500. He's cheaper. We've seen him get some run too. And then Kyle Williams seems pretty thin. I will say that. Obviously, he can get behind this defense and go for a long one. But this Kyle Williams is probably a large field play only and is a very thin play, if anything. So 12, 10, 14. 2 receptions, 1 reception, 72 yards. You see what I'm talking about here. He's not going to rack up receptions. It's obviously going to be a big bomb here, and that's about it for that. So Patriots defense, we do have to talk about. They're going to be expensive. They're going to be right up there, 3,900 on DraftKings. They're probably a 5K defense over on FanDuel. Yep. So if you want to play them, it ends up getting really, really expensive really quick. So a little worried about it as far as the game environment for them. Just talking about, can the Jets push back? I don't really think they can, but just we'll see about that. I just like some better game environments here than Drake May and stuff. I think he's a good play on paper, but when you're going up against some of these other teams and some of these other games, it just ends up being really hard to see the ceiling for the Patriots. I think they're fine. I don't want to lean into them too much. So next game here, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, slight dog favorite on the road to the Miami Dolphins. Quinn Ewers is back in the saddle as far as being quarterback for the Dolphins. Looked competent in the first half against the Bengals last week and then fell apart in the second half. Baker Mayfield has really kind of gone back to just being a very mid quarterback. He's not been very good at all this year. Mike Evans was targeted for a couple touchdowns last week. Did not get there. Just some wonky stuff there. He ends up being pretty expensive. I do like him on this slate today. 6,500 on DraftKings, 8,300 on FanDuel. Ends up being pretty expensive there. But Godwin, it's been hard to. Baker Mayfield has not supported more than one wide receiver over the last month or two. 5K on DraftKings, FanDuel. He ends up being 6,200. They've talked up Igbukah, trying to get him more worked in early. It's pretty thin though. Igbukah has been really bad over the last, second half of the season. 4-8. He hasn't had a double-digit game since week 10, so it's been 7 weeks, almost 8 weeks without double-digit points from Igbukah after totally tearing apart the beginning of the year. K-Dot, I'll throw in there too. He is not in my player pool this week. My player pool is pretty small. I don't want to play him. 4,900 on FanDuel. DraftKings, he is 3,200. On the other side, we will see about Achan. He ends up being the most expensive play on this slate. He got there last week, 18 points. I'm a little worried about his ceiling with Quinn Ewers there compared to Tua. I just don't love it for Achan. But if the Dolphins are going to play along in this game against the Buccaneers, I just think this game's going to be more of a slug. I don't really think the Buccaneers are going to get away from the Dolphins. I just don't think a whole lot happens. Achan cheaper on FanDuel at 8,800, but I mean, it just the third highest running back behind Jonathan Taylor and James Cook. I'd rather play Achan than the other two guys, but I don't love the matchup at all. The only other guy I would consider for Miami would be Jalen Waddle, who got there, especially if they're in a negative game script. He's 7K on FanDuel. DraftKings, he is 6,100. Ended up having 12. He had 72 yards on 9 targets, so he's going to get the targets there. Not interested in Darren Waller. He did not get there last week against the Bengals in a really good matchup. I know that he's run hotter than the sun on touchdowns, but it just, like I talked about, player pool's really thin. There's some tight ends that I like. I like Hunter Henry better. I like Brenton Strange better. Harold Fannin, those guys better than Waller. I know he's gotten there, but just not a play that I want to play. As far as running backs go for Tampa, my advice to you is good luck. Sean Tucker gets the goal line stuff. Rachaad White gets third down passing down role. Bucky Irving gets mixed in there. I believe Bucky Irving is going to be 6,200. That is probably the way I would go as far as tournaments go, but as far as like a cash lineup, I do not feel comfortable playing any of these guys. He's not been good. He's not been efficient. Let me get his price over on FanDuel. He is 8,300. I mean, you are paying up for Bucky Irving. I'd rather pay the $500 more for Achan. This is what you're getting. I mean, 7-7, had some decent games. Week 4 before he got hurt, that was the game that he kind of went off. But Sean Tucker's gotten some. Rachaad White's gotten some. He would be a GPP, probably a large field tournament play for that only. I just don't feel good about the Bucks. Bucks have not been good at all this year, and I think that last year we saw about the high flying offense for the Bucks, and people are like, "Oh, this is still the same Buccaneers." It is not. Liam Cohen's gone. He's gone to Jacksonville, and he's turned Trevor Lawrence into the greatest quarterback of all time. And then the rest of these guys have just been absolutely terrible for the Buccaneers, especially the second half of the year. Baker's playing hurt. It just Tristan Wirfs, I believe, is out as well, which makes it even worse. So if you want to play Bucks against Quinn Ewers, who, like I said, first half was okay, second half was absolutely terrible. 4,500 on FanDuel. DraftKings, he ends up being, if I could pull this up here, a little cheaper. I don't love it. I don't think the Buccaneers defense has been that great this year. I mean, you're not seeing much of a ceiling, obviously. 2, 5, 7, 2. Week 5 had 26 points against, that would have been Spencer Rattler in the Saints, but they just haven't really gotten there. Just not a play that I want to get into today. So, and Dolphins defense, they're going to be a punt play. I think they're fine. I think they're okay. Let's see here. Cleveland is up there. Like I said, Dolphins I think are fine. Raiders, Titans over on DraftKings. Dolphins probably your punt play of the week over on DraftKings. And then on FanDuel, they're going to be middle of the pack. I'd rather play Giants. You're going to play into some ownership there, but I'd rather play that on that side there. So next game and last game of the early window, probably the second best game on the slate is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Slight road favorites going to Indianapolis to face the Indianapolis Colts. Philip Rivers looked competent once again. That's what happens when you're one of the all-time greats and better than half the other quarterbacks in the league. Going up against Trevor Lawrence, who has become the greatest quarterback of all time over the last 2 months, which I, honest to God, cannot explain it. But he's been using his legs. He's been precise. He throws from the left side of his body, which is kind of wild to see. He's just been absolutely on fire. He ends up in an awesome matchup against the Colts defense, who just got their absolute cheeks clapped last week against San Francisco and Brock Purdy. They get Trevor Lawrence. Seems like Sauce Gardner's back. I could care less. The secondary, Colts don't have pass rush. Chris Ballard as GM, probably going to get extended again, even though he's been absolutely terrible. Tyler, I'm right there with you, probably. Lock of the week. I don't know if it'd be mortal lock, but it's right up there as far as lock of the weeks go. But, if I can rant just for a second about Chris Ballard, he's probably going to get extended again. He's going to get year 25. The late Jim Irsay called him the Michael Jordan of GMs. I mean, if Michael Jordan didn't have arms or legs, I guess he could be the Michael Jordan of GMs. He's just been god awful. He gives up 2 first-round picks to Sauce Gardner, who is finally playing, but it doesn't matter. And Colts are in purgatory again. They're going to play Grandpa Philip Rivers, who, if you tune in the show, you know I love Philip Rivers. He's the greatest of all time. He'll be okay against Jacksonville, but it's just embarrassing. But he's going to get some more run. He's going to get an extension, I'm sure. They'll build a statue for Chris Ballard, the greatest GM of all time, who's just been goofy. So before I get into the game, do I have any fear playing the Jags passing attack with the Colts now out of the playoffs? I do not. I think the Jaguars are about to go scorched earth on them. Travis Etienne's in a really good spot. We'll see about Tootin. I'm not really worried about him. Travis Etienne's been really good, but Trevor Lawrence is going to just beat the absolute brakes off this Colts defense. I cannot tell you, this pass rush for the Colts could not breathe on the quarterback. They cannot breathe air and hit the quarterback right now. Kwity Paye, Latu. DeForest Buckner's out because they played him. His neck's broken. He'll be back next year. It's been 10 years of Chris Ballard trying to draft these pass rushers, and he's missed on all of them. The best one was the first-round pick to DeForest Buckner. He's not even playing. Grover Stewart, these guys just suck ass, and I'm saying that as politely as I can. Going up against Trevor Lawrence, and the Jaguars have historically owned Indianapolis over the last 5-10 years. I'm sure David Garrard threw for 500 against this team back in the day, but Trevor Lawrence is right there with Joe Burrow and Jacoby Brissett in that realm of pocket. I'm not afraid of them at all. 31, 47. He's got the 20 points games, but this is a really good spot. If you're worried about Sauce Gardner, I'm just telling you, I'm not. I think he's going to play limited snaps. It doesn't matter because they don't have a pass rush. Brian Thomas Jr., I know people are scared of playing Brian Thomas Jr. I think he's probably I don't even know if it's sneaky on a slate like this. I like his spot here, going for the big bomb here. 6,300 on DraftKings, FanDuel. He's 5,200 on DraftKings. I think he's a fine click. I'm not scared to click on him. Jacoby Myers, the second coming of Christ as far as wide receivers go. He's 5,300 on DraftKings. 6,800 on FanDuel, a little more expensive, but I'd play him. Last week, Parker Washington, all-time great up there with George Washington. He went scorched earth last week. Playing right out of the slot for whatever reason, but 26 points. He'll probably drop the nuke too. All these guys going up against the Colts. The Colts are an embarrassment. I got other games I could go on about how bad the Colts are, but if you want triple stack Trevor Lawrence today, Brenton Strange, I was kind of going between him and Colston Loveland. I think I'm going to lean to Strange, but Strange has been pretty up and down, but 5,600 on FanDuel, DraftKings, he's 4K. He's been really good this year. 14, 13, 14. He's had some duds here, but he catches the touchdown. That's what you're hoping for as far as tight ends go. As long, you're obviously playing against the Trey McBride nuke. That's the thought process here. It's Trey McBride and the rest of the field. Talk about Hunter Henry. He's in a good spot. Harold Fannon's been a top 10 tight end. Tyler Warren, I don't love. Dallas Goedert's been a red zone machine. Kincaid in a good matchup. Juwan Johnson. It's really Trey McBride versus the field, and you're hoping for touchdowns. Brenton Strange would be, honest to God, probably one of the better clicks outside of Hunter Henry and maybe Goddard as far as tight ends go this week. Like I said, that's what your mind frame in DFS is. You're playing Trey McBride versus the field. 2,500 more for Trey McBride compared to the second tight end and Fannin. So I have no worries about Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars passing game or the offense at all. ETN, he's expensive, but he's a really good click this week. Once again, 7,100 on DraftKings, going to be more expensive on FanDuel. He's 7,600. I think he's a great click this week, and I want to bring him up against the other guys in his tier. So you have Jonathan Taylor, who is most expensive on FanDuel. I'm not personally. James Cook, he's in a decent spot. Worried about the weather, but he's gotten the workload. Achane, Quinn Ewers, Barkley, Bucky, Chase Brown in a good spot. We talked about him earlier. And then it's Travis Etienne sticking out like a sore thumb at this price point. Travis Etienne has been a top 10 running back this week. 14, 30, 20, 19, 19. We'll see about Tootin, but before then, Tootin really wasn't that big of a deal. So, and then you get to the cheaper guys like Warren, Henderson, Kenneth Walker. Travis Etienne will get clicked. I don't think he's going to get out of this world owned. I think people will probably play Trevor Lawrence and then play the wide receivers. I think you can play him with Trevor Lawrence this week, and I think they have the ceiling there. As far as the Colts side, Jonathan Taylor's really expensive. He's the most expensive guy. It's not his fault. It just, when you have Philip Rivers under quarterback, it's just really limited, and you know exactly what's going to happen when they're running the ball. He just has not. You're going to hope that he breaks one off. He did it last year in the fantasy playoffs, but I just think it's a different story. As far as the wide receivers go for the Colts, Josh Downs would be my preferred play, and he's going to end up being a punt play, so you can fit in the Bengals, McBride, all that good stuff there. So 4,200 for FanDuel, 5,600 on DraftKings. Pittman, he's been okay. The problem with these Colts guys, you're going to hope for a touchdown. Outside that, the ceiling's pretty lackluster, and I say that cheering on the greatest of all time, Philip Rivers. So 6K for Pittman on DraftKings, or FanDuel DraftKings. He's 4,900. Alec Pierce got there with two medium-sized bombs last week. 4,700 on DraftKings, FanDuel. He's 5,800, and then Tyler Warren. He's been okay. You're hoping for a touchdown. I'm just a little worried about that. So, and then Philip Rivers, if you're going to play him, it's pretty thin. I mean, he's bottom of the barrel. He's going to you're going to hope for 2 touchdowns and 200 yards. You're hoping to get the baseline from Philip Rivers and go elsewhere. I mean, he got you 18 points last week for a grandpa. You can't ask for much more than that. So we'll see. I think the Jaguars are just going to beat the absolute brakes off the Colts and hopefully throw Chris Ballard in a coffin. But I mean, I'm sure he'll get extended, 15 more years of mediocrity, hang the banner, no AFC South titles in over a decade, no playoff games ever since 2020 when Philip Rivers was here, the only good quarterback since Andrew Luck's left. No pass rush. Sauce Gardner coming off a goofy heel injury. I expect the Jaguars to roll. And if you're not playing the Joe Burrow, Jacoby Brissett stuff, Trevor Lawrence should be right behind there. I'd have him ranked over Drake May for what it's worth as far as matchups go. So 2 games left. Those will be the afternoon games. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, any starts questions, drop those in. I'd be happy to take care of those. And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe to the show. Truly appreciate it. Next game here, the New York Football Giants, slight road favorites going up against the Raiders. The battle for the Mendoza #1 draft pick. Raiders are quiet. I shouldn't say quietly. They're doing it out loud. Tanking. Brock Bowers is out. Leads for Michael Mayer at tight end. You get Max Crosby. They told him to go sit his ass at home, even though he was fine. He was playing basketball with his kid last week, so I'd be surprised if he even shows up to the game this week. But you do have to talk about this game. I'll start with the defenses because I think both defenses are going to get played. And, you get the Giants are probably going to be the most owned defense on the slate. Giants defense has been bad, though, especially against the run. We'll talk about Ashton Warren, who went off last week against Houston. It's one of those things you can't really explain. But had a good game last week against Minnesota. Basically, Max Brosmer once J.J. McCarthy was out. Outside of that, they've not been good. This pass rush, even though they are good on paper, have not been good. Secondary's bad. Other side here, the Raiders, going up against Jackson Dart, who got completely hid against Brian Flores last week. They're 3,400. Both of these defenses are going to get played a lot. I'd rather play the Giants, but you're going to play into ownership. And when you're playing defense on DFS, I'd rather get away from the chalk, especially these goofy. Dolphins are sitting right here with probably half the ownership. I'd rather play that. Let's see here. Browns, Saints. I'd pay up Steelers. I'd pay up a little bit more for those. I'd rather play those than the Giants. I know the Giants could probably break the slate, but if they don't, if they get, say, 5 to 7 points and they're at 50% ownership, you got a big advantage against the rest of the field. So even if you play Raiders stuff, you tackle Jackson Dart, he gets concussed, he's out of the game. He visits the blue 10 about 5 times a game at this point. It's gotten really bad for him. One guy I do like in this game, we talk about Ashton Genty. He ends up being 7,500 on FanDuel, DraftKings, he's going to be up there too. The other running back I like probably a little bit more, not going to get much of a click, is Tyrone Tracy. He has a good matchup here with everybody, obviously punting the season. He is 5,400 on DraftKings, FanDuel. He is 6,200. He's really cheap. Worked more in than Devin Singletary. He's got a little bit of a ceiling. You probably get 14, 15 points in a game script like this. I do like him. I think he's viable for cash, honestly, with as thin as the slate has been. I'm not interested in Singletary. We do have to talk about no Theo Johnson, so we get the Wandale experience once again I know everybody here loves playing Wan'Dale Robinson. He's going to be a DraftKings play more than a FanDuel, but he 5,700 over there. He's got the ceiling, 33 points, but 8 targets for 20 yards ends up getting you 10 points. Get a touchdown, he gets you up to 16 there. So we'll see about how that goes. This game's pretty ugly, like I said. If you want to play the running backs with the defense, I think that's fine. That's viable. Ashton Genty went scorched earth. He has been terrible all year long. He was a terrible redraft click, but semifinals, he goes up against Houston, the best defense in the league, and scorches them for 34. He could do it again. He's in my player pool. It's not a guy that I'd love to play, but I mean, it ends up being pretty thin, and he's cheaper than Warren, Henderson, ETN, those guys. So I think it sets up nicely there. He's in a good spot. My main takeaway, if you're listening to this, you're playing DFS, everybody and their mom is going to click on Giants defense this week. In a spot like this, if they don't go 10 plus and it's 30 to 50% ownership, I just worry that you get buried. There's better spots here. The Steelers, a little bit more expensive. You play them. Honestly, Jaguars, just get different at defense. Giants are fine there. And if they bury you, they bury you. But they haven't all year. It's outside of one game last week. And I just would rather lean elsewhere than playing Giants defense on a slate like this. So, last game of the week. Seems like we're going to get some weather here. The Philadelphia Eagles going on the road to Buffalo. Buffalo, slight home favorite. I don't understand how. Buffalo's been very up and down. Josh Allen and James Cook have been fine, but the rest of these guys have been an abomination. Khalil Shakir's been Dalton Kincaid can't show up and play on the field. It's just been pretty goofy there. So I will start with the Eagles side. I'll start with both quarterbacks, honestly, just because they're right neck and neck with each other. Josh Allen ends up being the most expensive player on the slate. I think you can play him naked. I don't think you have to play him with anybody else. And then Jalen Hurts on the other side. People are going to be worried about Jalen Hurts here as far as the game goes. I think he's fine tournament play. He's been okay. He's not been that good. He'll probably get you 20 points. Do like AJ Brown, who's been really good this last couple weeks here. If I could pull up his name here. He's 7K on DraftKings FanDuel. He ends up being 8,600. He's been okay, like 14, 15. Just I worry about the environment here as far as the weather. Seems like weather's going to be a big factor on this game. This is probably the game when everybody's leaning into Jacksonville. They're leaning into the, Browns. This game kind of goes under-owned. We like this game at the beginning of the year. It's got all the playmakers, but it just ends up. I feel like this game's the game environment. I just worry that this game ends up being a slog. So Devonta Smith, he ends up being 7,400. I would not play him and AJ Brown together. I would probably play one of these guys. And if you want to pair him, I'd probably pair him with Dallas Goedert, who has been a red zone threat as far as the red zone goes, as far as touchdowns. So I would not play these guys together. If you're going to play the Hurt stack, I'd play AJ Brown or Devonta and then pair him with Dallas Goedert, who is 5,700. We see 10, 22, 11. He's got the dud games as well, but I mean, he's got a lot of touchdowns this year. And I talked about earlier, as far as tight end goes, touchdowns and all that stuff. Real quick, brought up Michael Mayer just for a second there. I think it's fine punt play, nothing more. So if you're trying to fit some stuff in there as far as Raiders stuff goes, I think he's fine. If you're going to play double tight end on DraftKings, I think he's okay there. But I worried about him a little bit this week, and I'd rather play Henry. I'd just rather pay up for some of the other guys. But if you're playing double tight end on DraftKings, I think he's viable there. So sorry about that. As far as the Bill side of it goes, Dalton Kincaid would be my preferred stack partner with Josh Allen, but I'm worried about him playing. He's questionable every single week of the season. He's 5,400. He ends up being the wide receiver one. I know a lot of people like Shakir. It's really thin as far as these pass catchers go, and it takes a lot of testicular fortitude to play any of these pass catchers for the Bills. Shakir, 5,700 on FanDuel. He's a cheap guy. I mean, these guys, you're hoping for 2 touchdowns, and I'm not even going to list some of the other wide receivers for Buffalo. Keon Coleman, he's probably not going to play. He gets scratched every week now. It's really just Josh Allen and then James Cook. James Cook is 9K on FanDuel. DraftKings is going to be right up there at 8K. We obviously know the ceiling for James Cook, but at the same time, it just gets very goofy very quick. as far as these guys go. So on the other side, Saquon Barkley kind of coming around a little bit. 24, 17, 21. He doesn't have the ceiling that James Cook does, but I think the Eagles, I know the Bills are a favorite here. I think the Eagles win. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of roll the Bills. We saw this last year. They got kind of hot towards the end of the year and then kind of worked their way through the playoffs when they go through these ups and downs where everybody thinks Sirianni should be fired and all that stuff. So, like I said, if I'm going to play it, I'm going to play it through the Jalen Hurts side. I don't think he's going to get played at all this week. Everybody's going to lean elsewhere. The other thing, Jalen Carter's back for Philadelphia, so kind of the run game for Buffalo gets hurt when Jalen Carter comes back there. So Jalen Hurts, like I said, I play A.J. Brown over Devonta Smith personally, and then I pair it with Dallas Goedert. I would not play Smith and A.J. Brown together because it just seems like it's one week or the other for those wide receivers. It doesn't end up being both guys hitting at the same week. So Saquon is a fun tournament play. Excuse me. James Cook, I think he's fine too. I just don't see this game, especially with the weather. It seems like what they're going to be getting. Just seems that this game's going to be kind of a goofy slog. But on paper, when you're going up against a really thin slate against the Bengals, Trevor Lawrence, like the Jaguars, that stuff, this is probably the next game on that tier there, and nobody's going to play this game. So if you want to lean into it, I think it's viable there. I would not be surprised. We end week 17, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, both those guys break the slate. So that should do it. I think that is it. I'm not playing any of these defenses. Knox, he's okay too. I mean, you're really playing Russian roulette with these pass catchers for Buffalo, and both tight ends are questionable. So as far as this goes, I really don't have much else. I don't have any interest in any of these other wide receivers outside Shakir, and I don't have any interest in Shakir. I'm trying to find the next guy on this list to even bring up. Josh Palmer, God, no thanks. Not enough drugs in the world to get me to do that. Tyrell Shavers, Brandon Cooks. I mean, you got to pay me to play these guys. I'm not paying to play them. So that should do it for this week 17 slate. Like I said, I'm going to finish up here with some flag plants. And then if you have any questions before we get off the air here, drop those in the comments. So last thing we will get to before the flag plants, like I said, if you have any questions, not if you don't catch the show, I'm on Twitter as well, Jameson Rules, obviously, but trying to see if there's anything else we have here for week 17 before we get off. But I think that is about it. I will get to my flag plants, and on a slate like this, it gets pretty goofy. Like I said, I've echoed this a million times. It's just really thin this week. So my first flag plant, I'm going to play into Jamar Chase and Trey McBride. I'm going to play both those guys. The spot of a lifetime, I'm going to play them into ownership. I'm not afraid of the ownership on this slate here, and I'm going to give both of them out. So you play both those guys. If you want to play the punt running back, I'll give out this week. It'll be Tyrone Tracy. That'd be my preferred punt play. You can play him with, Kenneth Gainwell too, if you want to fit those other slots. And then my second flag plant for this week will be Brian Thomas Jr. going up against the Colts secondary. He has not been a fun click at all this year. People get very frustrated about it. And I know the first click I gave out was pretty chalky, but Brian Thomas Jr. been really frustrating. We've kind of, these fantasy playoffs, we had Kyle Pitts. We had the big dog Derrick Henry go off last week when they didn't do anything all season. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a guy who didn't do much this entire season. He's got a great matchup, and kind of sets up nicely and get behind this Colts defense or lack thereof. So Brian Thomas Jr. would be my flag playing along with Jamar Chase and Trey McBride together. Play those guys in ownership, and that will do it for week 17 NFL DFS. So it's championship week. Hope everybody obviously had a great Christmas. Hopefully you are not stressed too bad over the championship week. I had 5 championship teams, and I dodged the big dog Derrick Henry in all of them, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. So just want to say good luck to everybody in your championships. Hope you take them down. We'll be back week 18 next week, the final week. I do plan on doing playoff DFS stuff. It will be at a different time. I will update everybody when I figure out that time, and Joel should be back here next week. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Good luck this week. Hope you guys have a great week 17. I'll catch you all next week. Appreciate